So, business information system. What is it? Years ago, the Department of Corrections tried to manage all of its business through a series of siloed applications, right? And they tried to create, they had an environment that was not connected to anything. They had an environment that relied upon things like the Nike network. You guys know what that is, right? You take a file and you run to the next person and you give it to them, so on and so forth. And none of these systems communicated. None of it was in real time. None of it actually could be used for big analytics, because what you did was you took a report from over here, which was 45 days late, and you took a report over here that was 5 days late, and then you took a report over here, so on and so forth, and then you had another report that somebody just made up. Okay? And you try to put them all together and you try to make a report of it. Now, I guess you can imagine how effective that was. Right? Not very effective at all. So CDCR decided what they wanted to do was put it all into one basket, put it all into one solution. It was an ambitious plan. What they decided to do was to take it all and put it into one software solution. And what they chose was SAP. And if you look to the left, if you notice on, I think it was Davu's slide or Joe's slide, it said 138 systems. That's 138 systems today. There were about 1,000 back then, okay? Counting desktop applications, access databases that people were creating on their own. You know, we had a lot of, grassroots kind of things going on. And we had a lot of information that couldn't be shared or couldn't be used across an enterprise application. We also had a lot of interfaces. We used things like Kelstars, SEO interface, things like that. And a lot of those had different timelines attached to them. So we were kind of managing our business, kind of like managing it through an ATM, right? You walk up to an ATM, you stick your card in, you see what your balance is. You come back the next day, you stick your card in, see your balance, and that's how much money you have, because it tracked it real time. In those days, that's what we had to do. We had to literally go back and figure out 45 days ago and compare how much money we've spent up to this point. So we needed a more realistic way to track our stuff in real time, and in one place where it would be all integrated. We chose the SAP solution, and we chose IBM to partner with us in delivering that solution. Now, the significance of the BIS change was this. You know, we look at it from, yes, it was a successful ERP, right? It was a successful technological implementation. It was successful in that we were able to get the functionality to work for us. It was successful in that we were able to get the environment, the architecture, the support, everything, the applications. We were able to retire applications. We were able to do all of those things. But really, for anybody who's ever done that, frankly, it's everybody in this room, that wasn't the hard part. The hard part about an ERP is that what you're going to do is you're going to reach into an organization and you're going to tell them, and some of these have been functioning for a very long time, the exact same way, with the exact same people. What we're going to tell them is, you're going to change the way you do business. You're not only going to change the way you do business, you're going to change the way you communicate. You're going to change the way you engage your business partners. You're going to change the way you engage your customers. It's no longer a situation in which you have a file on your own system and somebody has to send you an email for you to send them the latest download. And then somebody sends you one the next day, and you send another download, but it's not the same information. You realize all of a sudden that it's symbiotic, that the data that's downstream and the data that's upstream are dependent upon each other, that the people become dependent on each other. For people to become successful in their job, it wasn't the fact that they could manage their Excel spreadsheet on their own desk. It was the fact that they had to communicate with somebody downstream who was putting in data that was affecting their numbers. And realizing that what they were putting into their system was affecting somebody else's numbers. And that was the biggest change. The biggest change was not the system. The system was hard. Putting it together was hard. Implementing it was hard. Training it was hard. All of those things were hard. But the change management was extreme. The change management, engaging people and saying to them, listen, we're going to change it, so we're going to change the way you do business, and this is actually going to be a good thing for you. So you should engage it, right? You laughed right out of the gate. The funny part is that you're right. A lot of people would sit there and say, no, You know, when I started in biz in 2008, I was a business customer. I was the chief of procurement. I had people in my office, and they were crying, right? Right. Not because they couldn't use the system, but for the first time in 20 years, they didn't feel competent in their job. They didn't feel like they knew that they were the expert that they thought they were, that they had to change all over again. We had people retire. So the biggest change is we made a change of culture. We went from a siloed organization to an integrated enterprise. It's a big change for something this large, for an organization this size. We standardized our business processes around the system. We realized what the system could do for us, and so we started to look at it. Now, that didn't happen right overnight. I can't tell you how many people said, yeah, make it do it like this. This is a COT system. It doesn't quite work like that. Okay? But over time, people started to realize what the data and what the application could do for them, and so they started to change their business because of enlightened self-interest. They started to realize what the system could do for them. They started to see, wow, if somebody downstream gave me some data, I can do my job better. I can know better. I can make better decisions. So enhancing communications through integrated data. Right? Enhancing communications. It enhanced communications because I had to talk to somebody. I couldn't just make my own spreadsheet. I couldn't make up my own numbers. I couldn't go on a conference call and just shoot it out there. What I had to do was I had to call somebody and say, hey, listen, man, you need to put in your data. You need to key it in correctly. You know, you're not putting in that it's an asset. You're not putting an asset shell around it, so I can no longer track these chillers that you're putting in. I can't track these computers that you're putting in. You need to kind of put it in there for me. And the other guy comes back to you and says, yeah, but you're not putting the money in, so I can't actually tell you how much it is. So it was a communication simply by the system itself. People starting to realize that by being integrated, you actually had to start talking to each other. Right? No more voicemail or email. I'm actually directly impacting your job. That was a big deal. Reporting accurately and timely across an entire organization. As I said before, a lot of our reports, if we could get them at all, at one point, we had a hard time knowing how many people we had. We are now doing a system that's real time, which was very confusing for folks because they would print out a report at 9 o'clock and it would say something, and they'd print it out at 11 o'clock, and they'd call me up and say, Paul, it doesn't work. The numbers aren't the same. Right? And I'd have to explain to them that somebody probably put in a PO. Somebody put in a purchase order, or somebody did a budget transfer, or somebody actually did a transaction that moved an employee to another place. It was a very big move to understand real-time data, organizationally. At first, it was terrifying, right? Because there was the doubt that the data was accurate, because there was no way to know the data was accurate because it was constantly moving, right? So people started creating spreadsheets to track it, right? Right? Because, you know, God forbid, if it doesn't go on Excel, we're not going to do it, right? So people started to track their own stuff. And then what happened was they started to realize that the funny part is that because BIS calculates things at such a minute level, that actually their Excel spreadsheets weren't all that accurate. But then they started seeing that it started to match. So what they did was they engaged it, right? And so now people are able to make business organizations, and they're able to make those decisions real time. I actually know how much overtime I'm spending today. I actually know how many people are absent today. I know how many posts are vacant. I know who has to call who to get somebody to stand watch over there so somebody else is safe. I now know that I have to be able to get a bus driver to move this inmate to there, from here to there, and how much it's going to cost. Because before they used to ask us, and we would give kind of an estimation. Now we can tell you. And that was a big deal. It's changed the culture. So, a very small team of people, and I'm not kidding around because I've done ERPs for about 20 years now. A very small team of people took this endeavor on, and if you look at this over here to my right, you'll see a litany or a list of all the functionality that was rolled out by the BIS team. It's substantial. And if you've done ERPs, you'll realize that this is across three functionalities. It's across three disciplines: supply chain, We didn't just do one or two, we did all of them. We did supply chain, with procurement and warehousing, goods receipt, accounts payable, goods master data, and vendor master data. I cannot tell you how important those two things were. They're in the insurance policy for the system, right? A lot of times we kind of overlook that one, master data. But if you can't guarantee that the data that's going into the system is accurate, 5 years from now, your system is not worth a damn. Right? Okay. Financial, accounts receivable, general ledger, grants management, asset management, real asset management, funds management, CO reporting, fleet tracking, personnel cost planning, project systems, financial master data. Fleet tracking. We're a pretty big organization. How many cars do you think we had? We didn't know either. We didn't know. But we do now. We know where they are, how much they cost, the whole bit. And it's going to give us the flexibility for our next stage, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So we're able to look at personnel cost planning. Personnel cost planning is pretty impressive. It's not only just looking at how much a person costs, but how much does it cost as applied to the job. And not just how much it costs to apply to the job, but every cost applied to the job. Their gym membership, right? Do you calculate that often? We do. Their membership to special organizations, how much it costs to arm them, to equip them, to train them. Okay? So we have real costs, real time. Human resources, organizational management. It's the foundation. Okay? It basically says who is where in the organization. If you don't do this in an ERP, you're going to have a hard time. Okay? Personnel administration, that's just the positions themselves. Training and events, contracts, RPA workflow, grievances, return to work, workers' comp, EHS, which is TB testing. We test all of our employees, and we keep track of it. Customer master data, time and shift. Reason why it's highlighted and bolded and all that, we're doing it now. And it was actually quite the endeavor to get that done. So, we did all those things with a staff of about 120 people. We're now 60 people, budget cuts. But what did we do? I mean, really, all that functionality is great, but the fact of the matter is you're looking at me going, okay, but if you did it for 10 people, not a big deal, right? But here's what we actually did. We did it across 3 departments. We had to get them all in a room and agree to what we were going to do. Anybody from Fiscal? Okay. 34 CDCR institutions. Okay? Now, as Joe said before, these are cities. These aren't just cities. In some places, they're the largest city in their district. These have their own hotel spaces, garages, restaurants, maintenance facilities, parks, sports teams, stores, clothing manufacturing, any type of manufacturing, actually. And each one of those is independent and individual. And each one of those has to be able to run as a city, but then be integrated to the larger organization. And that's what BIS did. It allowed them to track all of their purchases, all of their warehousing, all of their expenditures, and then tie it back and report it real time. 50 organizations. As Joe pointed out, and as David pointed out, CDCR is enormous. I think that one of the greatest things, the 2 things I learned when I first came to CDCR, I came from DMV. And I thought, DMV, we're pretty big. 240 locations, 10,000 employees. This is an order of magnitude larger. I think as a procurement officer, I discovered that there were more chiefs and directors in CDCR than there were staff at finance. It's a big organization. It's a big command and control organization that needs information real time. Over 50,000 CDCR employees. And these are in 18 of the 22 bargaining units. We have almost all of them. 18 of 22, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big. So our personnel rules had to be very complex. in order to be able to cover all the ground. $8.7 billion budget. We had to be able to manage it and report on it in real time. 58,000 employee personnel records. You notice the number is a little bit higher than the active employees because we keep track of the employee even after they've left. So that if they ever do return, we just turn them right back on and they go on with their CDCR career. We don't have to back them out of the system, put them back into the system, so on and so forth. 60,000 purchase orders annually. That's larger than pretty much anybody. We do that across all the organizations. 15 million invoices processed annually. And by the way, because of the way we do it real time, our late payments are dramatically down. Can you imagine doing 15 million invoices using a manual system? You can imagine what our late payments look like. But we've made a dramatic improvement there. 500,000 assets managed. And that means from computers to cars to guns to pretty much fax machines, printers, anything at chillers. I mean, as I said, these are cities, right? So they have these large refrigerators, everything. We track them all. And we have a cost for all of them as well. So, what are we doing now? All right, so they say, what have you done for me lately? We're rolling out time and shift. Time and shift is an ambitious plan to take all of the 35,000 correctional employees, or posted employees, and put them into a system in which we could schedule them. We did a hybrid solution between Kronos Telestaff and SAP. Originally, the solution was individual servers at each location. What we did was we went to a SQL Server central instance, and now we track all 35,000 employees in one instance. We're able to report every vacancy in every institution, every overtime used, who used it, using the seniority rules, everything. Okay? We can report that now and turn it into time, which is given to CO, which is converted into pay, into SCO. We're right now at, we're rolling out 4 and 5 out to 6 additional institutions. We're currently processing 5,200 monthly custody timesheets as of August. Our error rates are pretty low, exceptionally low. Otherwise, you would have heard about it in the B, right? Because it's pay. Okay? So, deploying. We're deploying at 3 to 4 more institutions over each month through May of 2014. This was a significant advance, and I'll tell you one of the things that was the most powerful part about this is that we had very strong executive support, very strong vendor support, because we wanted to make sure it was right. We wanted to make sure that the pay was right before we rolled it out. A lot of people said, go, 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 get it out there, get it out there. But the executive management decided to support the project and say, no, no, take your time, do it right. And for that reason, we're able to roll out a very aggressive schedule now, because it's right. Current, let's see, other current and future biz initiatives. Skippers, right? It's DGS, it's keying in your POs. We did 60,000 POs last year. Can you imagine how much manual keying into Skippers that is? It's a lot. It's literally producing every PO twice almost. We're going to create an interface that goes directly from our system to Skippers, and that manual keying will be eliminated. A lot of savings in time and positions. Automated invoice processing. This used to take a room full of people every month to do this. And now it's just an automated interface. Virtualization of the environment. We're currently going to our own private cloud with OTEC, in partnership with OTEC. It's an exciting project, and we're really looking forward to it. It's going to give us a lot of flexibility. It's going to increase our performance, and it can give us a lot of things we currently don't have in our server-based environment that we have today. Training and events. We're going to give an integrated repository of all records for the employee, every training, everything they do, so that they will have a complete record of the employee, all their skill sets, and then we'll apply that back to time and shift, because I have to know what their qualifications are for them to stand a wash, right? Are they gun certified? Are they multilingual? Are they, female, so on and so forth? All of those things will be tracked in training and events, whether they have CPR certification, which they all do. But then again, we literally will track all of the training, all their immunizations, everything. So we know that the person who goes into that post is qualified to be in that post. And we know we'll be able to look and say, these are the places we need to do, these are the places we need to put our efforts into to get the training up in order to be able to utilize all of our staff. It'll give us our first true picture, right, from an enterprise standpoint. SEO time interface. So after I do time and shift, right, in our current process, we take those 35,000 timesheets and we print a manual form. We take that manual form and we type it into SEO. So we have all this automation that produces 35,000 forms, right, at a push of a button, and then we take it and we manually key it into SEO, right? That's a lot of key. So when we get the interface running, all of that will be eliminated, which will dramatically reduce the staff and the keying footprint across the entire organization. So that's what we're currently working on. Future opportunities. Remember I talked about fleet maintenance, right, and knowing where the fleet is? We also know where all the assets are, all the buildings, real assets, so on and so forth. We know all the buildings. We're now going to be able to keep track of each one of the buildings and the cost for each one of those buildings, each one of the fleet, how much gas they've used, how much oil they used, what's the last maintenance, the depreciation on the vehicles, so on and so forth. Okay? We'll be able to do that using plant maintenance. Automated warehousing. So we went in, we put BIS in there, we said we now keep track of all our inventory. Now what? Now we have to cost it. We have to apply a cost to each individual item in there. Now I have to be able to put barcoding in there so I can literally go through and scan it and find out what my current levels are. And if I can cost it and I know what my current levels are real time, I can now start doing internal trades within organizations. I no longer have to spend money because I don't know how much supplies I have across the organization. Shower shoes over here, surplus. Rain slickers over here, deficit. Trade, right? And neither one of them has to buy anything. It's a huge cost savings across the board. So, also just-in-time coordination with PIA and other major suppliers. Now, this is very cool when it comes to things like CHCS and these automated warehouses and these robotics that we're looking at going into. With real-time and just-in-time delivery, we'll be able to take action and not have to store huge amounts of goods and services because we'll actually know what we have, what its level is, and when its replacement needs to be done. Because we can now do big data, right? We know what we used, we know how we used it last year, so on and so forth. We'll be able to plan for the future. So, as I said when we first started out, we had a really rough time in BIS. It was a tough road. But now we've just been nationally recognized. We're a finalist for the state CIO's National Award for Improving State Operations. It's a national award. We're competing against hundreds, if not thousands, of projects, and we are very proud of being a finalist in that award category. So, in summary, we got integrated procurement, contracts, and accounting, approved visibility into institutional operations, more accurate budget, efficient precision reconciliation, better fund, accounts management, timely reporting and budget execution, efficient integration reporting, enterprise reporting. We actually know what we have across the entire organization. Doesn't matter what department, doesn't matter what organization, we know it all. It's pretty powerful stuff, which leads to better government and more efficient government across the board. Thank you.